poor orphan boy bought a storage unit full of junk. What she found inside changed her life. Have you ever stood at the edge of something impossible, knowing you had only one chance to change everything? Subscribe now to join our journey toward 1,000 hearts who believe in second chances. Hit that like button if you've ever taken a leap of faith. The wind cuts sharp across the storage facility parking lot, carrying with it the scent of diesel and old snow. It's the kind of January morning where your breath hangs in the air like a question waiting to be answered. Rows of orange metal doors stand silent, each one holding secrets that someone else abandoned, each one a story that ended before its time. Among the crowd of bargain hunters and resellers, there's a boy who doesn't quite belong. He's maybe 12, 13 at most, wearing a coat 2 sizes too large and boots held together with duct tape and hope. His name is Daniel, though nobody here knows that. Nobody here knows much about him at all. In his pocket, he carries $47, every cent he earned shoveling snow and carrying groceries for the elderly woman who lives 3 trailers down from the shelter. His fingers wrap around those bills like they're made of something more precious than paper. The auctioneer, a thick man with a clipboard and a voice like gravel in a tin can, moves down the line of units. One by one, they roll up the doors. One by one, people crane their necks to see what lies inside. There are professionals here, folks who make their living off other people's forgotten things. They know what to look for: the glint of metal, the shape of furniture, the suggestion of value buried in chaos. Daniel watches them, learning their language. He sees how they stand back when there's nothing worth having, how they lean forward when something catches their eye. Unit after unit goes for prices he can't touch. $50, $85, $120. Each time the hammer falls, Daniel feels his chance slipping away like water through cold fingers. The morning grows colder. More people leave. The crowd thins out until there are maybe a dozen left, most of them looking bored, ready to call it a day. Then they reach Unit 37. The auctioneer sighs as he breaks the lock, and even before the door rolls up, Daniel can tell this one's different. There's a hesitation in the man's movements, a certain weariness. The door rattles open on rusty wheels, revealing darkness and the silhouette of piled junk. Cardboard boxes sagging with moisture. A broken chair. What looks like an old mattress standing against the back wall. Nobody moves closer. Nobody seems interested at all. Let's start at $20, the auctioneer says, sounding like he'd rather be anywhere else. Silence. Come on now, folks. $20. Surely someone wants to take a chance. More silence. People shuffle their feet. Someone coughs. 15. Nothing. Daniel feels something stirring in his chest. Something that might be courage or might be desperation. Maybe they're the same thing. $10, the boy says. His voice comes out smaller than he intended, but it carries. Every head turns. The professionals look at him with something between pity and amusement. The auctioneer squints. Son, you sure about that? You're buying sight unseen here. Could be nothing but trash in there. Daniel nods. His throat feels tight. $10, he says again, stronger this time. The auctioneer looks around one more time, hoping for another bid, for someone to save this kid from his own foolishness. But nobody speaks. Nobody wants Unit 37. Sold, the man says, and brings his hand down. Just like that, Daniel owns something. For the first time in his young life, something belongs to him. He walks forward on legs that feel unsteady, pulling out his carefully folded bills. He counts out $10 while the professionals drift away, already moving on to the next opportunity, the next score. The auctioneer takes the money, hands him a receipt and a new lock. You got until end of day tomorrow to clear it out, he says, not unkindly. Good luck, son. Daniel stands alone in front of Unit 37. The door is open now, but the inside is dark, and he left his flashlight back at the shelter. He takes one step forward, then another. The smell hits him first. Old paper, dust, something like cedar or pine, and underneath it all, the scent of time itself. His eyes adjust slowly to the dimness. He can make out shapes now, layers upon layers of someone else's life, packed away and forgotten. His heart hammers against his ribs. Maybe he just spent his only chance on nothing. Or maybe, just maybe, he bought himself a doorway to something more. The wind picks up behind him, pushing him gently forward as if the world itself is telling him to step inside and see. The next morning arrives with fresh snow and the kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're the only person awake in the world. Daniel borrowed a flashlight from Mr. Peterson at the hardware store, promising to return it by evening. He also borrowed something else, something harder to name, a sense of purpose. For the first time in months, he has somewhere to be, something that's his to discover. The storage facility looks different in daylight. Less mysterious, more ordinary. Just rows of metal and concrete. The kind of place you drive past without thinking twice. But Unit 37 calls to him like a secret waiting to be told. He opens the new lock with fingers stiff from cold, and the door rolls up with a screech that echoes across the empty lot. Light floods in, and Daniel sees it all now. The unit is maybe 10 feet by 10 feet, packed floor to ceiling with the archaeology of someone's existence. Cardboard boxes are stacked in columns that lean like tired soldiers. Some are labeled in fading marker: kitchen, books, winter clothes. Others have no labels at all, just water stains and the sag of neglect. In one corner, there's a wooden chair with one leg shorter than the others. Against the back wall, a rolled-up rug tied with twine. A stack of picture frames, their glass catching the light. A metal filing cabinet with drawers that won't quite close. Daniel steps inside, and the floor creaks under his weight. The air is colder in here than outside, as if the unit has been holding on to winter for years. He sets down his flashlight and rubs his hands together, then reaches for the nearest box. The cardboard is soft with age, threatening to tear. He opens it carefully. Inside, newspapers. Dozens of them, yellowed and brittle. He checks the dates. 1987, 1988. 1991. Someone saved these for a reason, though what that reason might be is lost now to time and circumstance. The next box holds dishes, wrapped in newspaper from the same era. Plates with a pattern of blue flowers. Teacups with gold trim worn thin. Daniel lifts one carefully, and it feels fragile as an eggshell in his palm. He imagines someone drinking coffee from this cup, someone who never thought their dishes would end up in a storage unit, bought by a homeless boy for $10. He sets it down gently and moves on. Box after box reveals the same story. A life interrupted, packed away in haste or despair, never retrieved. There are clothes that smell of mothballs and old perfume. There are books with pages dog-eared and spines creased from reading. There are kitchen utensils and hand tools, and a tobacco pipe that still carries the ghost of smoke. Each item whispers a question Daniel can't answer. Who were you? What happened? Why did you leave all this behind? He works through the morning, making piles. Things that might be worth something. Things that are just trash. Things he's not sure about yet. The professionals would know at a glance, but Daniel is learning as he goes, sorting his future one object at a time. By noon, he's made it through maybe a third of the unit, and his hands are black with dust, his clothes filmed with grime. His stomach growls, but he ignores it. He's found nothing of real value yet, but he keeps going because what else is there to do? This is his chance. This is all he has. Then, in a box near the back, he finds something different. Photographs. Not in frames, but loose in an envelope, dozens of them. Black and white, color faded to pastels. A man in uniform, young and serious, standing at attention. The same man older, smiling, his arm around a woman in a yellow dress. A house with a porch. A dog. A car. A life, captured in small rectangles of paper. Daniel sits down on the cold concrete and looks through them one by one. He doesn't know these people, but something about the way the man looks at the camera makes Daniel's chest tight. There's a dignity there, a quiet strength. The kind of look that says, I served. I mattered. I was here. Underneath the photographs, he finds letters. Not many, maybe a dozen, tied with a ribbon that's frayed and faded. The envelopes are addressed to Sergeant Marcus Cole at a military base Daniel doesn't recognize. He doesn't open them. It doesn't feel right, not yet. But he holds them carefully, these pieces of a stranger's story, and wonders what happened to Sergeant Marcus Cole. Wonders why his things ended up here, abandoned and forgotten. waiting for a boy with $10 and a desperate hope to stumble into them. The afternoon light slants through the open door, painting everything in shades of amber and shadow. Daniel sits in the middle of Unit 37, surrounded by the debris of someone else's existence, and feels something shifting inside him. Maybe he didn't buy junk after all. Maybe he bought a mystery. Maybe he bought a responsibility. And maybe, just maybe, that's worth more than any treasure he might have hoped to find. Have you ever dug deeper into something, only to find that the real story was buried all along? Tap that subscribe button and help us reach 1,000 subscribers who believe every abandoned thing has a story worth telling. The sun is lower now, casting long shadows across the storage unit's concrete floor. Daniel has been here for hours, but time moves differently when you're uncovering someone's past. He's moved most of the front boxes out into the daylight, creating a path deeper into the unit, deeper into the mystery of Sergeant Marcus Cole. The boxes in the back are heavier, packed tighter, as if whoever stored them meant for them to stay hidden. Daniel drags one forward, and something metal clinks inside. He opens it carefully, peeling back layers of newspaper padding. His breath catches. Military medals, pinned to faded ribbons, rest on a bed of tissue paper. A purple heart, a bronze star, others he doesn't recognize. Each one a story of courage, sacrifice, service. Daniel has never held anything this important before. His hands tremble slightly as he lifts the purple heart, feeling its weight. Someone earned this with blood and pain. Someone wore this with pride. And then someone packed it away, locked it behind an orange door, and never came back. Beside the medals, there's a folded flag. The American flag, triangle folded the way they do at military funerals. Daniel knows this because he saw it once at the memorial service for a veteran who used to sleep in the park. The flag is pristine despite the years, protected by plastic and care. He doesn't unfold it. Some things feel too sacred to disturb. In another box, he finds a uniform jacket. The name Cole is stitched above the pocket. The fabric is rough wool, olive green, spotted with small moth holes, but still dignified somehow. Daniel holds it up, and it's far too large for him, meant for a man full-grown and strong. He imagines Sergeant Cole wearing this, standing at attention, saluting, serving. What did that feel like? To be part of something bigger than yourself? To belong? The more Daniel digs, the more personal it becomes. There's a shaving kit with a straight razor and a brush. There's a watch, stopped at 3:47, the crystal cracked, but the leather band worn soft from years on a wrist. There's a small Bible with notes in the margins, verses underlined, passages circled. Someone read this Bible with intention, searching for meaning, for comfort, for hope. Just like Daniel does sometimes, late at night at the shelter when he can't sleep. Against the back wall, hidden behind the rolled carpet, Daniel finds something he almost missed. A wooden chest, maybe 2 feet long and a foot deep, with metal corners and a small padlock securing it closed. It's made of dark wood, scarred and weathered, the kind of box that's traveled places, seen things, kept secrets. Daniel kneels before it, running his fingers over the wood grain. The lock is old, covered in verdigrease. He tugs at it gently, but it holds firm. For a moment, he considers breaking it open. He's seen people do it on those storage auction shows on the TV at the library. They cut locks without hesitation, treating everything as inventory, as potential profit. But something stops him. This box belonged to Sergeant Marcus Cole. Everything about the way it's positioned, hidden behind other things, protected and private, tells Daniel it holds something important. Something that shouldn't be opened lightly or carelessly. He sits back on his heels, studying the chest. There's an address burned into the wood on one side, faint but readable, 47 Maple Ridge Road. No city, no state, just that. Below it, carved less professionally, as if done by hand with a knife, are the initials MC and EC and a date. June 3rd, 1965. A wedding date, maybe an anniversary, a beginning. Daniel checks his phone. It's almost 4 o'clock, and the daylight is fading fast. He needs to make a decision. He could take the medals, the flag, maybe the watch, and try to sell them. He could probably get enough to eat for a week, maybe 2. Nobody would ever know. Nobody's looking for these things. Sergeant Cole is likely dead, and whoever EC was is probably gone too. These objects are orphaned, just like Daniel. Nobody would blame him for keeping them, for turning them into survival. But as he sits there in the gathering cold, surrounded by a stranger's carefully packed life, Daniel feels something he hasn't felt in a long time. Not quite hope, not quite purpose, but something close to both. A responsibility, maybe a connection. This man, Sergeant Marcus Cole, served his country. He earned medals for bravery. He loved someone enough to carve their initials in wood. He read his Bible and underlined verses about faith and endurance. And then something happened, something that left all of this behind in a storage unit, waiting. Daniel makes his decision. He'll find out what happened. He'll find out who EC was. He'll find out where 47 Maple Ridge Road is. And he'll make sure these things get to where they belong. It's what Sergeant Cole would have done. It's what someone should do. And maybe, just maybe, that someone is him. He carefully packs the medals back into their box. He folds the jacket with respect. He takes the wooden chest, the photographs, and the letters, and carries them to the front of the unit. Tomorrow, he'll start searching. Tomorrow, he'll begin the journey to find the story behind the storage unit. Tonight, he'll sleep at the shelter with something new in his chest. A mission. A purpose. A reason to keep going. The wind whistles through the storage facility as Daniel locks Unit 37. Above him, stars are beginning to appear in the darkening sky, cold and distant and beautiful. He shoulders his bag and starts walking, the wooden chest tucked carefully under one arm. Behind him, the unit waits in silence. But it's not empty anymore. It's been opened. Its secrets have been seen. And now, they're asking to be told. Morning comes with the kind of pale sunlight that makes everything look washed out and fragile. Daniel spent the night at the shelter, the wooden chest beside his bunk, one hand resting on it, even in sleep, as if afraid it might disappear. Around him, other people snored and shifted, each one carrying their own stories, their own losses. But Daniel felt different somehow. He had a purpose now, a mission that pulled him forward. After a breakfast of watery oatmeal and black coffee that the shelter volunteers serve with kind smiles and worried eyes, Daniel carries the chest outside to the back steps, where morning light falls clean and cold. He's been thinking about the lock all night. He doesn't want to break it, doesn't want to violate whatever trust Sergeant Cole placed in securing this box. But he needs to know what's inside. He needs to understand. He examines the lock closely. It's old. Maybe as old as the chest itself, brass turned green with age. The keyhole is small, delicate. Daniel tries a few things. A bent paperclip, a thin screwdriver borrowed from the maintenance shed, even a bobby pin he found on the shelter floor. Nothing works. The lock holds its secret with stubborn dignity. Then he remembers Mr. Peterson at the hardware store. The man is maybe 70, runs the shop his father opened back in 1952, knows everything about locks and hinges and the way things fit together. Daniel walks the 8 blocks through morning cold, his breath fogging, the chest growing heavy in his arms. The hardware store bell chimes when he enters, that same sound it's made for probably 70 years. Mr. Peterson looks up from behind the counter, reading glasses perched on his nose. "Morning, Daniel," he says, because Mr. Peterson is one of those rare people who remembers names, who treats a homeless boy the same as he'd treat a paying customer. "What brings you by?" Daniel sets the chest on the counter carefully. "I bought a storage unit at auction," he explains. "Found this inside. It belonged to a veteran. I want to open it, but I don't want to break the lock." Mr. Peterson comes around the counter, his movements slow but purposeful. He studies the lock, turning the chest this way and that, humming softly to himself. "This is quality work," he says finally. "They don't make locks like this anymore. See how the keyhole is shaped? That awarded lock, probably from the 50s or 60s. He disappears into the back of the store, and Daniel hears him rummaging through drawers. He returns with a small leather case. Inside it, dozens of old keys, each one different. "Let's see if we can't find this old girl's partner," he says with a smile. They try key after key. Some won't even fit. Others slide in, but won't turn. Daniel watches Mr. Peterson's patient hands, The way he tries each key with the same careful attention, never hurrying, never forcing. On the 14th try, a brass key with an ornate head slides home, and when Mr. Peterson turns it, there's a click that sounds like a door opening into the past. "There we go," Mr. Peterson says softly. He doesn't open the chest. He hands Daniel the key and steps back, understanding without being told that this moment belongs to the boy, not to him. Daniel's hands shake slightly as he lifts the lid. Inside, lined with faded purple velvet, are treasures more precious than gold. At the top, there's a bundle of letters, maybe 20 or 30, tied with the same kind of ribbon he found earlier, only these are older, the paper more yellowed. They're addressed to Marcus from your loving wife, Eleanor. Love letters. Daniel sets them aside gently. Beneath the letters, there are photographs, but these are different from the ones he found before. These are protected in a leather album, its pages brittle with age. Daniel opens it carefully. The first page shows a wedding. A young man in his military dress uniform, proud and serious and impossibly young, standing next to a woman in a simple white dress. She's looking at him like he hung the stars, and he's looking at the camera like he's challenging the world to try to take this happiness from him. The caption, written in careful script, reads, "Marcus and Eleanor Cole, June 3rd, 1965. The pages that follow tell their story in images, a small house with a porch. The same house with Eleanor standing in the garden, her hands full of flowers. Marcus in civilian clothes, working on a car. Eleanor pregnant, glowing. A baby girl. The girl growing. Christmases, birthdays, beach trips, school photos. A family, captured in black and white and fading color. A life built with love and laughter and the everyday grace of showing up." But the photos stop sometime in the early 90s. The final picture shows Marcus and Eleanor, older now, grayer, standing in front of the same house. They're still looking at each other the same way, though decades have passed. Still challenging the world. Still holding on. Beneath the album, Daniel finds documents, a marriage certificate, birth certificate for a daughter named Sarah, discharge papers from the Army, a deed to property at 47, Maple Ridge Road, Pine Ridge, Montana. And then, at the very bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, a small velvet box. Daniel opens it with fingers gone numb. Inside, a wedding ring. Simple gold band, worn smooth from years of wearing. And beside it, a man's wedding ring. Both together, protected, cherished, waiting. Daniel's throat goes tight. He understands now. These rings shouldn't be here. They should be on the fingers of Marcus and Eleanor Cole, wherever they are. The fact that they're in this box, locked away in a storage unit, means something went terribly wrong. Means the story that started with such hope and love ended with these precious things abandoned, forgotten, left behind. There's one more thing in the chest, tucked into a small envelope. Daniel opens it and finds a folded piece of paper, and on it, written in shaky handwriting, a note to whoever finds this. My name is Eleanor Cole. If you're reading this, I'm probably gone, and so is my Marcus. Our daughter Sarah moved to California and stopped calling. We tried to keep the house, tried to hold on, but the medical bills were too much. Everything we owned went into storage, and then we couldn't afford even that. I'm writing this in case someone someday opens this box and wonders who we were. We were two people who loved each other for 53 years. We served our country. We raised a good daughter, even if she forgot us in the end. We had a life that mattered. Please, if you can, find Sarah. Tell her we forgave her. Tell her we loved her until the very end. Eleanor Cole, 47, Maple Ridge Road, Pine Ridge, Montana. Daniel sits on the hardware store floor, the note trembling in his hands. Mr. Peterson kneels beside him, not saying anything, just being present in the way good people do when words aren't enough. The morning light streams through the shop windows, catching dust motes and making them shine like tiny stars. Outside, the world continues. Cars pass. People hurry to work. Life moves on. But inside this moment, Daniel holds the weight of Eleanor Cole's final request and knows with absolute certainty what he has to do. If you've ever felt called to do something right, Even when it's hard, hit that like button. Subscribe to join us on this journey. And tell us in the comments, what state are you watching from? Let's reach 1,000 subscribers together. Daniel stands at the Greyhound station with everything he owns in a secondhand backpack and the wooden chest clutched against his chest. The ticket to Pine Ridge, Montana cost him $32, nearly everything he had left after buying the storage unit. He has $15 remaining, a half-eaten granola bar, and a borrowed phone with 12% battery. By any reasonable measure, this is a terrible idea. But sometimes the right thing and the reasonable thing aren't the same. The bus arrives 20 minutes late, belching diesel and carrying the tired weight of people going places they'd rather not go. Daniel climbs aboard, finds a seat near the back, and settles in for the 14-hour journey. The bus pulls out of the station as snow begins to fall, soft and steady, covering the city in quiet white. Daniel watches familiar streets disappear, replaced by highway, then open country, then mountains rising like frozen waves against a gray sky. He spent the first few hours reading Eleanor's letters to Marcus. They're from the early years, when Marcus was still deployed, still overseas, fighting in a war whose name Daniel barely knows. Eleanor wrote about ordinary things: the garden, the neighbors, the price of milk, how much she missed him. But underneath the ordinary words, there was extraordinary love. "Come home safe, my darling," she wrote over and over. "Come home to me." And he did. He came home, and they built 53 years together. The bus stops in small towns with names Daniel has never heard. People get on, people get off. A mother with 2 small children. An old man with a cane. A woman who talks too loudly on her phone about someone who'd done her wrong. Daniel keeps to himself, one hand on the chest, protecting Eleanor's treasures from the jostles and jolts of travel. Night falls somewhere in Wyoming. The bus driver stops at a 24-hour diner, announces a 30-minute break. Daniel buys a cup of coffee and a piece of pie he doesn't really want, making his remaining money stretch. He sits at the counter, the chest on the stool beside him, and watches the snow fall outside the diner windows. A waitress with tired eyes and a kind smile refills his coffee without asking. "Where you headed, honey?" she asks. "Montana," Daniel says. "To find someone." She nods like this makes perfect sense. "Well, good luck to you," she says, and Daniel thinks maybe that's what the world needs more of. People wishing each other good luck, people hoping for each other's success. Back on the bus, Daniel sleeps in fits and starts, his head against the cold window, the chest secure in his lap. He dreams of houses covered in snow, of people he's never met, of letters written and read and cherished. He dreams of belonging to something, to someone, to somewhere. When he wakes, dawn is breaking over mountains so tall and white they look unreal, like paintings of mountains instead of actual stone and snow. The bus pulls into Pine Ridge just after 10 in the morning. It's not much of a town. A main street with a hardware store, a diner, a post office, a church with a white steeple. Everything is covered in snow, and the air is so cold and clean it hurts to breathe. Daniel steps off the bus on a frozen sidewalk, his breath fogging, his fingers already going numb. The bus pulls away, leaving him standing alone with his backpack and his chest and his mission. He walks to the post office because post office workers know everyone in small towns. The woman behind the counter has silver hair and glasses on a beaded chain. "Help you?" she asks. "I'm looking for 47 Maple Ridge Road," Daniel says. The woman's face changes, goes soft with something like sadness. "Oh, honey," she says, "that place has been empty for near about 3 years now. The Coles, that was sweet people. Both passed within months of each other, and their daughter never came back for the house. It's just sitting there waiting." Daniel's heart sinks and rises at the same time. They're gone, Eleanor and Marcus. But the house is still there, the place where they loved and lived and built their life. "How do I get there?" he asks. The woman draws him a map on the back of an envelope, her handwriting careful and clear. "It's about 2 miles out of town. You walking?" Daniel nods. She hesitates, then reaches under the counter and pulls out a pair of hand warmers. "You take these," she says firmly, "and you come back here when you're done. I'll make sure you get a warm meal." The walk to Maple Ridge Road takes him through town and then out into country where houses grow farther apart and the snow lies undisturbed and perfect. His feet crunch on frozen gravel. His breath comes in clouds. The chest grows heavy, but he doesn't stop. He can't stop. Eleanor asked him to do this, and he's going to see it through. He finds the house just before noon. It sits back from the road, surrounded by bare trees and deep snow. It's small, just one story, white paint peeling, porch sagging slightly. But even abandoned, even forgotten, it has a dignity about it. This was a home. This was where Marcus came back from war. This was where Eleanor waited. This was where they raised Sarah and grew old together and loved each other until the very end. Daniel walks up the driveway, his footprints the only marks in the snow. He climbs the porch steps carefully, testing each one. The front door is locked, but there's a window that gives slightly when he pushes. He's not breaking in, not really. He's delivering something. He's keeping a promise. Inside, the house is cold and dim, but still full of their presence. Furniture sits under white sheets like ghosts. Pictures still hang on the walls. In the kitchen, there's a calendar stopped on September 2022. Daniel walks through slowly, reverently, seeing the life they lived in every corner. The chair by the window where someone sat and read. The table where they ate their meals. The bedroom where they slept side by side for 53 years. He finds the perfect spot in the living room, the mantel above the fireplace. He sets the chest there gently, then opens it. He arranges the items carefully, the medals in their case, the wedding album, the rings in their velvet box, Eleanor's note. He places them so that if Sarah ever comes back, if anyone ever comes back, they'll see immediately what mattered to Marcus and Eleanor Cole. Not money, not property, but love, service, memory, each other. Daniel steps back, and something loosens in his chest. He did it. He brought them home, or as close to home as he could manage. The afternoon light through the window catches the metals, makes them shine. Outside, the snow continues to fall, covering everything in soft white silence. And in this moment, in this empty house full of memory, Daniel understands something important. We're all connected, all responsible for each other, all called to carry each other's stories forward when we can. He takes one last look around, whispers, "Rest easy, Eleanor. Rest easy, Marcus," and walks back out into the Montana cold, leaving the door unlocked behind him. The post office lady is waiting with that promise meal. And after that, Daniel has a bus to catch, a long ride back to a city where he has no home. But he's different now. He's someone who kept a promise. He's someone who did something right. And maybe that's worth more than any treasure he might have found in a storage unit full of junk. 3 days after leaving Montana, Daniel sits in the shelter common room, staring at a phone number written on a piece of paper. Finding Sarah Cole took longer than he expected. The post office lady in Pine Ridge didn't have contact information, and there was no listing in any directory. But Daniel is nothing if not persistent, and persistence has a way of opening doors that seemed locked. He finally found her through the county records office, which led to an old address in Sacramento, which led to a neighbor who knew where she'd moved. Now he has a phone number, 7 digits that might connect him to the daughter Eleanor forgave, the daughter who stopped calling, the daughter who never came back for her parents' things. Daniel's thumb hovers over the call button. What does he even say? How do you tell someone their parents died, loving them, forgiving them, waiting for them? He presses call before he can talk himself out of it. The phone rings once, twice, 3 times. He's about to hang up when a woman's voice answers, cautious and tired. "Hello." Daniel swallows hard. Is this Sarah Cole? A pause. Who's asking? Her voice has an edge to it, the sound of someone who's been hurt and learned to be careful. "My name is Daniel. I'm calling from Pine Ridge, Montana. It's about your parents." The silence that follows is so long Daniel thinks she's hung up. Then he hears something that might be a sharp intake of breath. "My parents are dead," Sarah says, and her voice breaks on the word. "I know that. I got the notification from the county 3 years ago. I couldn't afford to fly out. I couldn't afford to ship their things. I couldn't afford anything. So I let all go. I let them go. And I've been living with that ever since." Daniel hears the pain in her voice, the guilt that's been eating at her, for 3 years. He understands that kind of guilt, the weight of things left undone, words left unsaid. Your mother left a note, he says gently, in a locked box with their wedding rings and your father's medals. She wanted you to know they forgave you. She wanted you to know they loved you until the very end. The sound Sarah makes is somewhere between a sob and a laugh. How do you have this? How do you know any of this? So Daniel tells her. He tells her about the storage auction, about the $10, about finding her father's medals and her mother's letters. He tells her about the trip to Montana, about placing everything on the mantle in their house. He tells her everything except the part about being homeless, about having nothing, about spending his last dollars to bring her parents' memory home. When he finishes, Sarah is crying openly. I was so ashamed, she whispers. I moved to California to make something of myself. I was going to get rich and come back and take care of them. But life happened. I got divorced. I lost my job. I had medical bills. And every time they called, I felt like such a failure. So I stopped answering. I told myself I'd call when things got better. But they never got better. And then it was too late. It's not too late, Daniel says, surprising himself. Your parents' house is still there. Their things are still there. You could go back. You could see what they left behind. You could forgive yourself the way they forgave you. Another long silence. Then Sarah says, I can't afford the trip. I can barely afford rent. I'm working 2 jobs just to keep my head above water. Daniel looks around the shelter at the other residents who are also working multiple jobs, who are also barely keeping their heads above water, who also carry the weight of things left undone. I understand, he says, but maybe someday, maybe when you can, just know that they loved you. That's what your mother wanted you to know. That's the message I was supposed to deliver. Thank you, Sarah says, and her voice is steadier now, stronger. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for caring about 2 people you never met. Thank you for being better than their own daughter. Daniel wants to tell her she's being too hard on herself, that life is complicated, that love and forgiveness are messy and imperfect. But before he can speak, Sarah says, wait, where are you calling from? Are you in Pine Ridge? No, Daniel admits. I'm back in the city. I'm staying at a shelter. Now it's Sarah's turn to be silent. When she speaks again, her voice is different, filled with a kind of wonder. You're homeless? And you spent your money to take my parents' things back to Montana. Daniel doesn't know what to say to that. It sounds foolish when she puts it that way, impractical and naive. But it also sounds like something true, something that mattered. I had to, he says simply. Your mother asked. Sarah makes a sound that's definitely a laugh this time, though there are still tears in it. My mother would have loved you, she says. She always believed in people who did the right thing, even when it cost them something. Especially when it cost them something. She takes a breath, and Daniel can almost hear her making a decision. Listen to me, Daniel. Give me your address. Give me a few days. I'm going to figure something out. You don't have to do anything, Daniel says quickly. I didn't tell you this to get anything from you. I just wanted you to know. I know that, Sarah says, and there's something fierce in her voice now, something that reminds Daniel of the way Eleanor looked in those old photographs, challenging the world. But you did something incredible for my family. You honor my parents when their own daughter couldn't. So give me your address, and let me try to say thank you properly. Daniel gives her the shelter's address, not quite believing this is happening. They say goodbye, and he sits holding the silent phone, feeling like something just shifted in the universe, like a door he didn't know existed just opened slightly. Around him, the shelter continues its evening routine. Someone's cooking something that smells like cumin and hope. The TV plays the news. Life goes on, but Daniel feels different. He kept Eleanor's promise. He found Sarah. He delivered the message. And maybe, just maybe, he helped a broken family find a little bit of healing, even if it came 3 years too late. He thinks about Marcus and Eleanor, about their 53 years together, about the way they loved each other until the very end. He thinks about Sarah, carrying her guilt and shame across all those miles. He thinks about himself, carrying a wooden chest through snow to a house that held ghosts and memories. That night, lying in his bunk with the sounds of the shelter around him, Daniel feels something he hasn't felt in a long time. Not hope exactly, not yet, but maybe the possibility of hope. Maybe the suggestion that good things can happen, that right actions matter, that love persists even after death, even across distance, even through silence and separation. He falls asleep thinking about wedding rings and medals and a house in Montana waiting in the snow. 2 weeks pass. Daniel goes back to his routine, looking for work, shoveling snow, carrying groceries, trying to survive another day. The story of Marcus and Eleanor Cole begins to fade into memory, becoming something that happened once, something good he did in a life that doesn't have many good things in it. He doesn't expect to hear from Sarah again. People say things in emotional moments that they don't follow through on later. He understands that. Life is hard, and intentions are easier than actions. Then one Thursday afternoon, the shelter director calls him to the office. She's a woman named Mrs. Chun, 60 years old and tough as winter bark, but with eyes that see people clearly and kindly. "Daniel," she says, "there's someone here to see you." Daniel's first thought is trouble. Social services, maybe, or the police about something he didn't do but might get blamed for anyway. But Mrs. Chun is smiling, which she doesn't do often. "Go on," she says. She's waiting in the common room. Daniel walks down the hallway with his heart doing strange things in his chest. He pushes through the door and stops. There's a woman standing by the window, maybe 45, with dark hair going gray in her father's eyes. She's holding a photograph, one of the wedding pictures, and when she looks up and sees Daniel, her face does something complicated, shifting through about 6 emotions at once before settling on something like gratitude mixed with sorrow. "Daniel," she says, and he knows immediately that this is Sarah Cole. She crossed the country. She came here. She's real and present and looking at him like he matters. He nods, suddenly shy, suddenly aware of his worn clothes and shelter smell and the way he must look to her. But Sarah doesn't seem to notice any of that. She crosses the room and does something that takes Daniel completely by surprise. She hugs him, just wraps her arms around him and holds on like he's something precious, something worth keeping. When she finally steps back, there are tears on her face. "Thank you," she says. "Thank you for what you did for my parents. Thank you for caring when you had no reason to care." She gestures to the chairs by the window. "Can we sit? Can we talk?" They sit, and Sarah tells him her story. How she went to California, full of dreams, and watched them crumble. How she meant to call her parents, but shame kept stopping her. How she got the notification of their deaths while working a night shift at a grocery store and cried in the break room for an hour. How she's been working herself to exhaustion ever since, trying to outrun the guilt. "After you called," she says, "I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what you did, about how you spent your last money to honor 2 strangers. I kept thinking about what my mother wrote, that they forgave me. I needed to do something. I needed to try to make something right." She reaches in her bag and pulls out an envelope. "I sold some things. I borrowed some money. I bought a plane ticket and came here because I needed to meet you. I needed to see the person who was kinder to my parents than I was." "You're being too hard on yourself," Daniel says, finding his voice. "Life is complicated. Your parents understood that." Sarah shakes her head. "Maybe, but you understood something more important. That love is worth honoring, even when it costs you everything." She hands him the envelope. "This isn't enough. It could never be enough. But it's what I can do right now." Daniel opens the envelope. Inside, there are bills. $100 bills. More money than he's seen in years. "I can't take this," he says immediately, trying to hand it back. "You said you're barely making rent. You can't afford this." Sarah closes his hand around the envelope. "I can't afford not to do this," she says firmly. "You gave me back my parents. You gave me the knowledge that they forgave me. You gave me permission to forgive myself. That's worth more than money. But money is what I have to give right now, so please take it." Daniel's throat is too tight to speak. He looks at the money, then at Sarah, then out the window where afternoon light is painting the world in shades of gold. "There's more," Sarah says softly. "I went to Pine Ridge. I went to the house. I saw what you did, how carefully you arranged everything. The county is willing to sell me the property for back taxes. It's not much, but I have a little equity in my apartment. I'm going to do it. I'm going to buy my parents' house." She leans forward, and her father's eyes are bright with something that might be hope. The house is a guest cottage out back. It needs work, but it's there. If you needed a place, you could stay there. You could help me fix up the property. I could pay you for the work. It wouldn't be charity. It would be a job. It would be a beginning. Daniel stares at her, not quite believing what he's hearing. A place to stay. A job. A beginning. The words sound like a foreign language, like something that happens to other people, not to homeless boys who buy storage units with their last $10. I don't understand, he whispers. Why would you do this? Sarah smiles, and in that smile, Daniel sees her mother's fierce love and her father's quiet strength. Because you did something right when you had every reason not to. Because you honor people you never met. Because my mother asked you to find me, and you did. Because maybe we're supposed to help each other, and maybe that's what makes us human. She reaches out and takes his hand. You gave me back my family, Daniel. Let me give you something back. Let me give you a chance. Outside the shelter, traffic moves past. People hurry to jobs and homes and lives that continue in their ordinary patterns. Inside this room, with winter light falling across worn furniture and hope rising like smoke from banked embers, Daniel feels something breaking open in his chest. Not breaking apart, but breaking open, like ice cracking on a river in spring, like a door that's been locked finally swinging wide. He thinks about Marcus and Eleanor, about their 53 years of love. He thinks about the medals and the letters and the wedding rings. He thinks about a house in Montana waiting in the snow. He thinks about storage unit 37 and the $10 he risked on nothing but hope. And he understands now that it wasn't nothing. It was everything. It was the beginning of this moment, this offer, this chance to build something that looks like belonging. Yes, he says, and his voice is steady and sure. Yes, I'll come to Montana. I'll help you fix up the house. I'll take the job. Sarah squeezes his hand, and her smile grows wider. Good, she says, because I already bought your bus ticket. We leave on Saturday. Before Daniel can respond, before he can thank her or tell her what this means, Mrs. Chin appears in the doorway with a knowing look on her face. I thought you two might want some privacy, she says, but I also thought you might want some hot chocolate and cookies. Fresh baked. She sets down a tray, pats Daniel on the shoulder with rough affection, and disappears again. Daniel and Sarah sit together in the common room of a homeless shelter, drinking hot chocolate and planning a future that neither of them expected. They talk about the house, about what needs fixing, about how spring will come to Montana and melt the snow and make everything green and possible. They talk about Marcus and Eleanor, about keeping their memory alive, about turning the house into something that honors what they built. As the afternoon fades into evening, Daniel realizes something profound. The real treasure in storage unit 37 wasn't the medals or the photographs or anything you could sell. It was the story. It was the connection. It was the reminder that we're all part of each other's lives, even when we don't know it yet. It was the proof that doing right matters, that kindness ripples outward, that love persists beyond death and distance, and all the ways we fail each other. He bought a storage unit full of junk for $10. But what he really bought was a doorway into his own future, a bridge between his loneliness and a place where he might finally belong. He honored two strangers, and in doing so, found a family he didn't know he was looking for. If you've been touched by this story, if you believe in second chances and the power of doing right, please subscribe to our channel. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers who believe that love and kindness matter. Hit that like button and tell us in the comments. Where are you watching from? What's your city and state? Let's build a community of people who believe that no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. Outside, stars are beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Inside, Daniel and Sarah talk and plan and hope. And somewhere in Montana, a house sits waiting in the snow, ready to become a home again, ready to shelter new stories, new beginnings, new chances at the kind of life that Marcus and Eleanor Cole would have smiled to see, a life built on honor, on kindness, on the simple, powerful truth that we're all connected, all responsible for each other, all called to carry each other forward when we can. The real treasure wasn't in the storage unit at all. It was in the journey Daniel took to honor what he found there. It was in the promise he kept, the miles he traveled, the love he carried forward. And now, because he was faithful to that small beginning, he's walking towards something bigger than he ever imagined. A home, a purpose, a place where he belongs. Sometimes you buy junk. Sometimes junk buys you a future. And sometimes, if you're very lucky and very faithful, a $10 gamble on a storage unit nobody wanted becomes the best investment you ever made. Not because of what was inside, but because of what you chose to do with it. That's the real treasure. That's what changes everything. That's what makes the difference between just surviving and actually living. Daniel learned that. Sarah learned that. And now maybe, just maybe, you've learned it too.